Okay, so we've spoken a lot about sex, and pretty kinky sex, 50 Shades of Grey. Let's talk a little bit about religion, and I want to focus on Pope Francis. This is a Daily Mail headline, so it's a bit sensational. But anyway, it says, the Pope declares couples who choose not to have children are selfish and condemns depressed societies for seeing offspring as a burden. So here we have the head of the Catholic Church saying to you, if you don't want to have children, well then you are just really selfish. Is it the place of any religious organization to be telling you how many kids you should have or what your family should look like?
No, absolutely not. I don't think so. I don't think they should be dictating things like that at all. No, I disagree with that statement.
Absolutely. I think firstly, we are overpopulated, so it really is brave for someone to choose not to have children with the kind of pressures that they are to have a family. I think no religious institution or any person has that kind of power to dictate whatever my reason is for having a child. I think it's quite backward, actually, and we could do with a little less people in the world.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, if I can't afford to have children, I think that'll be super selfish of me to go ahead and have children without being able to have the proper financial support or things in place to be able to raise those children. So if I decide not to have children, I mean, I think that's the right thing to do, not just because religion dictates that I should have a family of 5 or whatever kids. So yeah.
I think as South Africans, we often face a lot of pressures, either from our cultures or from our family, and sometimes from our religious institutions, about the specific way we should be living our lives. You know, you've got to get married, you've got to have this many kids, and if you don't, you're just a disappointment. Is that something that you feel you're experiencing with your peers?
Yes, definitely. A lot of it, what I find a lot of the times is you have people that have these opinions on how you should live your life on things that aren't even really based on the religion or something that's maybe not in the Bible or something. They like have selective things that they choose to follow and then don't choose to follow other things. And like things like telling you, okay, now you have to settle down, have a family before 30, and you know, what's wrong with you? You're going nowhere with your life if you're not married and having kids by 30. But I mean, it's not the same world as it was how many years ago. It's a completely new world, and one that none of us have experienced before because of technology and so things. So the culture changes as well. So I mean, I can't expect to have the same types of things that my parents did 40, 50 years ago and apply those same things now. So I think it's all completely different based on how the world is today.
I think you're making a very important point, and that's often people tack their own type of rules and ideas onto a set of religious beliefs, and it's completely human. I think we're seeing that if we move away from the issue with the Pope and we move on to ISIS and the Islamic religious extremism that we're seeing. They've taken a religion that is peaceful and they've tacked on violence that isn't actually preached in the Quran.
Exactly. I mean, if they could vilify an entire religion of people because of what these handful of extremists or whatever they do, how come you don't have the same case with like people attacking and calling Christians violent? If you take things like the Ku Klux Klan and those guys that burn crosses while they, lynch black men. So I think it's sometimes Western media dictates what the rest of the world is supposed to think about people, and I think that's completely wrong as well.
Yeah.
Nakal, are you experiencing any type of Islamophobia or feelings perhaps that are very negative towards the Catholic Church because of the beliefs of these small groups? Are you experiencing that in your social circle?
Of course, I definitely hear a lot of comments that make me think twice about also what position you're coming from. So someone may not be as explicit as wanting to behead someone, but kind of things that come out of people's mouths, that the theys or Muslims do this, and kind of things that you start to realize that they align certain behavior with a religious kind of group, which I think is problematic in itself. I think we've come to a point now where obviously we're seeing these extremist things in the news, but it does not dictate a whole religious kind of collective. I think we need to start to see people as far more as individualistic in their practices. I think, I do experience it, and I do see people taking what is on headlines as verbatim also, which is also problematic, and what was brought up just a second ago. Yeah, it happens quite often actually.
I think that idea that we have these stereotypes in our head and we don't necessarily realize what we're doing, but we're being quite offensive when we make comments like, oh, well, she's Muslim, they're like that, or
Yeah,
she's a
definitely.
Christian, they're all bigoted.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, that goes back to like everybody's own ignorance. Like she mentioned, you'll have people that will just read a headline and then make up their opinion on the entire matter without reading the whole article, for example. So you have people that will make up their opinion on these small things and then decide that this is how all people are, and then those stereotypes just never get past those stereotypes because people just keep on feeding into them without informing themselves and enlightening themselves on what the real facts are of the issue.
Yeah.
And that's where people keep on staying confused and pass on the ignorance generation to generation, I guess.
And it's quite tragic actually that you won't want to engage any further. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to take what you read now as fact, I would hope that at a point where we can get so much news so quickly, you'd be a bit more critical about, wanting to find out a little bit more. I can't take the first headline that I see as truth. We're way past that. And information is on your fingertips. So engage, like ask questions, and maybe you'll be able to have an informed opinion about something at least.
That is my pet peeve, especially when it comes to Facebook. People sharing these stories that are so obviously not true. But the true information is out there. It's not difficult to find.
Definitely.